micromobility in the city of Hartford, our beautiful capital city, which CROG is so proud to serve. So as you've probably noticed, each of our panels has had a little bit of a different theme, this morning, and a bit of a different cast of characters, right? The panelists for each panel have been a little bit different. And same thing here. We've got our micromobility theme, but we're going to be talking in many ways about the ecosystem or the community that supports transit-oriented development. You know, after maybe it's built or the essential building blocks are in place, what are some of the components that makes TOD tick and thrive over the long term? So just so pleased to welcome my good colleagues here. I'm going to ask them to briefly introduce themselves. We've got Jordan, Grace, and Mike. Jordan?
Hi. Whoop. Are we good?
We're good.
Hi there. My name's Jordan Polon. I'm the Executive Director of the Hartford Business Improvement District. We are a special services district in the capital city of the state of Connecticut.
Hi everyone, I'm Grace Yu with the City of Hartford's Department of Development Services. Thank you, Mike. I mostly focus on transportation planning, but we'll certainly cover a lot of other activities that we do to support micromobility and TOD in Hartford.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Zaleski. I'm the president and CEO of Riverfront Recapture. We are a nonprofit organization that manages 4 parks along the Connecticut River, 3 in Hartford and 1 in East Hartford, with riverwalks that connect the region.
Excellent. So I'm going to lead off with our first question and ask each of our panelists to address it from their perspective, leading off with Grace. So Grace, tell us about how micromobility contributes to successful TOD in Hartford, and what role does your agency, your office, play in contributing to the success of the larger ecosystem we were talking about, and micromobility more specifically?
Yes, it's great questions, and I brought a slide with me. It's a little jam-packed, and will be more. But just to start off with, the role question, actually, because I think it's auto-going, but the City of Hartford actually interacts with the concept of TOD more broadly. In the Planning and Zoning Division, I focus on transportation planning. So to the furthest right, you can actually see a couple of different things we do when it comes to the actual shared scooter system that we have here in Hartford today, of course with the partnership of CROG and the Operator. In addition to that, on the map underneath, you can actually see in yellow, we have a transit overlay district within our zoning regulations. The blue area is also our downtown districts. So I think that highlights how policymaking also comes into play. Underneath that, even further, the map that we have is our master bicycle plan map that really sets the framework for current and future infrastructure improvements for more of our cycling infrastructure. And then in the circular photo at the top, I want to note our Economic Development Division does a lot of the transformative development work. What you see there is a little bit of an aerial overview of the Arrowhead Gateway between Clay Arsenal neighborhood and downtown, as well as a bit of downtown north near the baseball stadium. In addition to that, small business supports a lot of the technical assistance and funding for our business community, so taking it a step further and infilling once you have developments. And then Public Works creates safer spaces through streetscapes, other public areas, including Bartholomew Avenue, our most newly minted streetscape, only a walk away from here if you all are interested in stopping by afterwards. But I know you're really here to listen about micromobility, and that's what we do in transportation planning. So Hartford is very fortunate to have multiple major modes of transportation here, whether you're taking the Bradley Flyer to the airport, going to New York or Springfield on the train, and et cetera, bus rapid transit, which I also took this morning. But what is really important is that micromobility is a way to address the first and last mile gaps to those important fixed route services. So what you do is that, as I think alluded to in a previous talk, is that you can expand out the reach of TOD by having smaller modes connecting those pieces together. So we've also seen with each iteration of shared micromobility in Hartford, the adoption is immediate and ridership is high. To date, we've had over 500,000 rides, and even with the last round, in the last half year or so, we've seen over 76,000 rides and over 10,000 riders, despite half of those months, including the winter months. There is a need and a purpose to us having this service. So I just wanted to close out with also saying that it's not just downtown that benefits from this. 80% of our trip rides and starts are actually in our neighborhoods. So it is about connecting more than your town center, but your other community areas as well. Our riders are using it to go to work, to meet friends and family, and as well as go to activities, etc. And I think a third of them actually said, of our equity program survey respondents, said that they were using it to replace car trips as well. So micromobility has a tangible effect in one, connecting you to different places and larger modes of transportation, but you also are on the street, you're getting off, you're going to a cafe or business, et cetera. So it just adds that more local element, I think, to transportation.
Excellent. Why don't we go to Mike next?
Thank you, Matt. So our mission at Riverfront Recapture is simple. It's connecting people with the Connecticut River, and we do that in a variety of different ways. We, there's your other slide. We have more than 800,000 people visit our park system throughout the course of the year. And we connect people with the Connecticut River in a variety of different ways. We're events, programs, and activities, but also through projects that are continuing to build the connectivity between the capital city and the region. At the moment, we've got about 8 to 10 miles of interconnected riverwalk on both sides of the river in Hartford and East Hartford. We're working on projects that will connect to the town of Windsor, about 2.5 miles north of Riverside Park in the North Meadows of the city of Hartford, to a 60-acre parcel where we're building a new recreational park. That connection will connect to the Windsor Meadow State Park, a state park that is operated by the town of Windsor, and that will ultimately connect to the Bissell Bridge, where the town of Windsor is currently working on a project that will connect to Windsor Center. So the connectivity, it's these individual little sections that are quickly becoming connected, so we're connecting the capital city with the region. At the same time, we're working on a feasibility study with the town of Wethersfield that will allow us to connect our park, Charter Oak Landing, in the South Meadows to Old Wethersfield. We're currently working on a feasibility study that will be released in the next couple of weeks that will offer opportunities for us to connect to Wethersfield. There's a significant desire for people to be using something, to connect to the region using something other than a vehicle. We've seen it through our Riverwalk system and our current park system. We have park visitor counting software in our cameras, and we can, I mentioned more than 800,000 people in our park system. The vast majority of those are using the Riverwalks and using it for a variety of different purposes, whether it's recreation, whether it's commuting to a job. We have lots of people who commute over the Founder's Bridge, pedestrians that connect over the Founder's Bridge. There's just lots of different ways that people use our park system and the interconnected Riverwalk system to get to where they're going, whether it be residential, business, or otherwise. So micromobility, ultimately, it's additional ways for people to get around the capital city and around the region without using a vehicle.
Thank you, Mike. Now let's hear a little bit from Jordan, and Jordan leads the Business Improvement District, which not every community has.
This is true.
So maybe you can talk about all the good work you're doing to support the system as well.
I'd be happy to. We see our role in the Hartford Business Improvement District as improving the experience for every single person who sets foot in our district, whether that is the private property owner and developer, or the resident who lives in their properties, or the restaurateur, or the line cook in that restaurant, or the person who is experiencing homelessness, or the person who is having a mental health crisis. Our role is to make sure that the experience for all of those people is improved by the services that we provide. When that comes to the ecology of micromobility, this is creating clean, well-maintained streetscapes for those people who are accessing and utilizing micromobility to ride on, to walk on. We make sure that our bus shelters are maintained during the warmer months, that they're clean, that they're graffiti-free. We make sure that during the winter months, the curb cuts are cleared of snow and ice so that people can cross the street once the plows have come through, so that people can actually wait in the bus shelter and get onto the bus. I think that when it comes to micromobility, the thing that we really tend to focus on is the thing that people experience while they are utilizing these services. So for us, we see our success in the continual care and maintenance of these streets 7 days a week. We deploy an ambassador team who makes sure that our streets are free of debris, that are clean and safe. We are out on the streets from 6 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, Monday through Saturday, and 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. on Sundays. We run the only free on-site bicycle roadside assistance in the nation. If you have any issues with your bicycle, we train all of our ambassadors through BCCO to be able to provide light bicycle maintenance. And this is a really important asset to be able to provide a strong base and fertile ground for transit-oriented development, because it doesn't end with the development. The people will come, and the people need beautiful access, vibrant streets, exciting events, and good information that we provide through Hartford.com to be able to access those events.
Excellent. Thank you, Jordan. And I know firsthand the impact that the bid makes. They've got a satellite office in our building. And it really, and we'll ask Jordan to elaborate on this a little bit more in a couple minutes, adding that extra level of service beyond what the city government is able to provide. So why don't we switch to our next question, and let's ask our panelists to talk a little bit about what they think they need to be successful long-term, thinking about sustainability, and what potentially could other partners and other stakeholders contribute to the system. So let's lead off in the same order, and Grace, maybe you, in your comments, you can touch on how we would love to expand our micromobility service across the region.
Right. No, I think that's a really great one, and this is a great question that we could all talk for hours about. I think in terms of expansion of the current system, one, it should be noted, to our knowledge, Hartford has the largest currently active shared micromobility system in the state. If anyone wants to beat us in numbers, our peak is 600. So we actually have a pretty robust fleet for a city of our size, but I think what is really important about how others contribute is that regional participation and success is mission critical. We have riders, whether they're residents or commuters, sharing that they want to go beyond Hartford or they want to come into Hartford, and that can't necessarily be done in a silo with ourselves, whether it's going to work, school, etc. It really does help to have that seamless system with other communities. That being said, even if you aren't near us per se, every other win adds to this larger narrative of supporting other modes of transportation. For example, New Haven launched their bike share system around the same time we did last year, and again, it's helping that narrative of really shaping that these are important services and systems for our communities to actually build together. I think just one note for those that are interested, perseverance is key. We are in a relatively new industry. I think their heyday was really starting up in 2017, even though there are systems as old as 2010. And so Hartford has had 3 iterations so far. We've had lessons learned, we've had challenges, but through all of that, the most important thing was not giving up, because that's not an option for everyone who needs to use it, rain, snow, or shine. So I think that there's that, and I'll just also say that parallel investment where you can is really great and important to do. Notably, I mentioned how each of our divisions, and those that I haven't even listed yet, are all participating towards the TOD ecosystem. But I want to call out, since our relaunch last year, we've seen thousands of rides on our corridors such as North Main Street, Albany Avenue, Park Street. Those are all, not coincidentally, areas that are eligible for the Neighborhood Investment Fund, which is $5 million to support both residents and business owners. We also have had or will be having additional streetscape improvements or other sidewalk road improvements to those areas to improve the safety. And then taking it another step further with the development portion, economic development happening along Arrowhead Gateway, downtown North, just as two primary examples, but then also looking to the future with the Parkville Innovation Corridor, some of which has already been started thanks to the work that's happening here recently as well. We're also looking to planning and improving efficiencies as well. We're working with the Greater Hartford Transit District through the city's Office of Sustainability to think about strategic planning of how we can make the micromobility system more sustainable and resilient, and again, connect that first and last mile to existing transit. So I've taken up a lot of airtime, but I think that's a little bit what we wanted to share.
Thank you so much, Grace. And just to add on to Grace's comments for a moment, CROG, working with the City of Hartford and other stakeholders, through a competitive process, we retained VEO to be our micromobility provider. And actually, any town in the state can access that service through our Capital Region Purchasing Coalition, which presently serves about 140 of the state's 169 municipalities. So we would love to have you join in. If you're interested, please visit our table and we can give you more information. Thank you, Grace. So Mike, moving on to you, and maybe you can talk a little bit as well about the impact or the potential of the East Coast Greenway being connected to the riverfront.
Sure, thanks, Matt. And the improvements that are being made to the East Coast Greenway, CROG is finishing up a study that will offer a variety of different routes for the East Coast Greenway, but recommend how it could come through Greater Hartford. Again, to reiterate, there's certain sections that need to be completed, and I think this study will go a long way towards making recommendations for how that work can be done. I think it's the collective mindset that ultimately we need to have, and I'm pleased to say that Connecticut and the Greater Hartford area in general, through CROG's leadership and state DOT and state DEP, has gone a long way to investing in projects that aren't necessarily highways or roads. They're those multimodal trails. There's the other modes of transportation, other ways of getting around the city or the region that may not necessarily be top of mind for your average citizen who drives to work every day and gets around in a vehicle, but for a significant portion of the population, they're looking for those other spaces. They're looking for those recreational spaces. They're looking for 10, 20 miles of off-road safe trails to be able to bike on or to run on or to walk. So I think there's that collective mindset that is important that we continue to keep top of mind at all levels of government, at federal, state, at the regional planning organization level, as well as the community organization. We're fortunate in the city to have a number of organizations that are focused on these types of projects and the quality of life, because ultimately isn't that what it's all about, the quality of life of the community? Getting around a city is easier when you've got a wayfinding project like the one that the iQuil partnership did. Experiencing a downtown, I think experience is a great word for when you visit a downtown, because we've all had experiences in other downtowns, and don't we want our downtown to be just like some of the others? So I think we're fortunate to have these organizations that are so focused on these efforts. It's supporting those organizations and supporting those projects that can ultimately make the city and the region a better place.
Thank you, Mike. So Jordan, what do you think you need for your organization to be successful long-term? We keep hearing about the calls for folks to return to the office, right? To establish that larger presence downtown. Maybe you could touch on that a little bit, and then the additional service level that you're able to provide beyond what the city is what most cities can offer on a regular basis.
Organizations like ours are primarily funded by an additional tax assessment paid by the property owners in the 60 blocks that we cover. So we generate and have generated for the entirety of our existence. We were established in 2006 under Mike Zaleski. So we both have a lot of experience in this particular area. We generate about $1 million in tax assessment funds each year, which go towards additional detailed services that the city is unable to provide. So for us, again, it's litter and graffiti removal. It is extra marketing. Our placemaking and events person produced almost 100 events last year alone. We bring in people to play music on the street to improve that experience. And I think that what is critical for us is really a mindset and the support, not only financially, because as we all know, making these experiences in terms of the infrastructure, making them seamless, trying to connect orphan bike lanes, trying to make sure that bus routes are beautiful and clean and easily accessible for all people is going to be a vital and important thing that we need moving forward. So the support of people's understanding that micromobility is best understood by people who live in densely populated urban areas, sometimes because this is the only choice. I think that the suburban mindset that micromobility is an entertainment-based option is great, but I think that people really need to start thinking about micromobility and public transit in terms of making it a more regular part of their everyday life. And I think that the support that we need isn't just financial. It's in the voices of all the people in this room being able to talk about transit and micromobility in different ways to as many people as we possibly can all the time. Because these are the things that create vibrant and beautiful cities. These are the things that bring people back to areas that have been somewhat decimated by the COVID restrictions and work from home policies. It has to be a part of the way that we think about our place in the world and the way that we move around all day, every day.
Thank you, Jordan. So I think we've got just a little bit of time. Would like to ask you one more question if I could, and then we're going to open it up to the audience. So the theme we started with, the ecosystem, the larger community, why do you think it's so essential to involve a variety of stakeholders in transit-oriented development, transit-oriented communities, making the micromobility system thrive? So any thoughts or reflections on that? And Grace, if you'd be willing to lead off again.
Right. I think our existing efforts show that there are already a lot of players in the space between the city, the different stakeholders that are up here today, and in the room. So there are existing partnerships and relationships that could be further leveraged to take that to yet another level. And I think that it's very telling. This is also almost a reinvigoration nowadays of heading towards this more transit-oriented space. I don't know if others want to add a little bit more.
I mean, ultimately it takes, moving some of these projects forward can be very challenging in a variety of different ways. So when you have the support at multiple different levels, leadership is incredibly important when you're trying to push forward just for example, a Riverwalk project. Trying to build in the Connecticut River floodplain is not terribly easy. So you need the collective support from so many and the community vision that this is something we want to see. This is something that's going to benefit the community in a variety of different ways, economic development-wise, quality of life-wise, and so many other different ways. So I think again, that collective mindset that this is going to be good for the community is important.
I think that that's exactly the right way to be looking at these things. You know, we're looking at centering community in every project that we're working on, because really that's what this is about. This is about communities. It is about connecting places, but really it's about connecting people. And when it comes to this ecology that we're all working on, we all have our parts to play. And I have a friend that I met through the International Downtown Association named Larissa Ortiz, who gave a great keynote about the ecology of retail and talking about how really understanding your place is going to determine how successful you can be. If you are working in an area that has bright sunshine on one side of the street and is deeply in shadow on another side of the street, you can plant a plant that needs a large amount of of light and sunshine on the shady side of the street, and even though they are separated by yards, that plant is not going to survive. And understanding your place in the ecology and being smart and intentional and strategic about how we are planning around micromobility with a real deep understanding of the communities we are working in is going to be vital to that growth.
Thank you.
And
Did you have another point you wanted to add, Grace?
Yes, I think Jordan also brought up a good point when it comes to bringing in community voices as well. It should be noted that micromobility, at least shared micromobility, has been a way to bring greater awareness and attention to so many different things that feed into it, whether it's the want for safer streets or for places to go to as destinations or attractions. I think that in the survey response that we had back in 21, over 70% said that they joined the program because they saw a scooter on the street and they wanted to try it out. And then they also further shared, one of the biggest things that they wanted was safer infrastructure, and then, as mentioned, the other things. So I think this is also a way to start guiding the conversation in your own communities about maybe they don't know about the benefits yet until they try it out. With us in Hartford having VO, I think that the operator is more amenable to pilots, et cetera, in other communities if you wanted to think about that exploration.
Thank you all so much. I think we're now ready for some questions from the audience. Kevin.
Yes, thank you. And this is for anyone on the panel to answer. And it's really just two things, really, that I don't think we have touched on today, but given the topic of micromobility, it brought it to mind. And that is the need for what we're talking about for folks that have mobility challenges. So if anybody could address that and how that factors into the work you're doing. And then the second thing is you mentioned safer streets, but I also wanted to go deeper on that, and that is the question of safety, public safety, and ridership or using different mobility tools that we have is probably also linked to how safe people feel doing so.
Why don't you lead off, Jordan? Two great questions, Kevin. Thank you.
Okay. I think that the way that you phrase that, how safe people feel, is a really important part of how we talk about public safety in downtowns. We talk a lot about the difference between feeling unsafe and feeling uncomfortable. And I think that one of the things that we do in urban place manning is try to remove some of those imaginary barriers that cause people to have a feeling of discomfort in a place where they are perfectly safe. I think that those come down to litter removal and graffiti removal. They are small things, but they can create a completely different experience for people in any environment that they are in. If you are at an amusement park and you are walking down the main street in that park and halfway down somebody tips over a garbage can, the people who are in front of that garbage can feel very safe and comfortable in a park that is well attended to, and the people who are now coming up on the garbage feel like this is an amusement park that is not well kept, that is potentially unsafe, and it is all just because of the litter that they see on the street. These are the things that we think about in terms of micromobility, and we know that we are operating in safe areas, but we are working very hard to remove both the physical barriers for people that have issues, because if there's debris in the streets or if there are issues getting on and off of a bus, those are going to be major challenges to the success. But it's also about those imaginary barriers that people often feel most strongly when they are at home. People are much more adventurous about micromobility and public transit when they travel, and we're really hoping for people to start thinking more about attempting those things and branching out when they're at home.
Excellent. And Grace, could you weigh in on that too, particularly the accessibility component?
Right. So I think this also leads to how do you approach safer streets? One is the social aspect of it in terms of perception, and the other is the actual infrastructure and systems in place. So I think especially when it comes to those with mobility challenges, having the infrastructure such as your curb ramps, the accessible tactile warning strips, all of those are different things that you add in, and we can really transform those spaces when we pair it up with a streetscape or other large projects. Right now we're in the midst of construction for a $10+ million streetscape project on Farmington Avenue. That'll boast new sidewalks, additional lighting, pedestrian buffers with raised crosswalks at our side streets, so that it's actually level and it almost acts as a combination speed hump / crosswalk. Those are all different ways that you can enhance the safety of a space through physical means, and I think that is a valuable portion of that.
Thank you, Grace. And Mike, I know the Riverfront, and you mentioned this earlier, has long had a focus on the public safety component.
I would just echo what Jordan said about the feeling of public safety, because we do everything we can in the parks to make sure that people feel like there's a presence. We have a Riverfront Ranger program that patrols our parks on a regular basis, but it's the user experience. It's somebody coming into the city, using our parks and having a great experience that is ultimately going to convince people that the parks are safe. I can spit out all the statistics in the world, and it's just not going to convince somebody who hasn't necessarily had that experience. So we try to show people that our parks are safe throughout the course of the year. In terms of the mobility impaired, parks have never been more important. Recreational spaces have never been important since the pandemic. So we do everything we can to make sure that everyone can use our parks, whether you speak a different language or you're in mobility impaired, or you have. We want to make sure people feel welcome in a public recreation space, because ultimately these parks are our community asset.
Thank you. Checking with my Main Street colleagues. Do we have time for another question?
I think one more.
Okay, great. Greg.
Hi there. I think someone mentioned that, that micromobility is revealing, other issues or concerns around the city. What's the status of taking some of the, street space away from cars and giving it to mobility of all types, but specifically micromobility?
Right, and so this is again related to the infrastructure components. I think that one, we are looking at holistically safe and complete streets. So one is including a place at the table for micromobility, including your bikes and your scooters. But we also want to think of our pedestrians and our transit riders. And I think that the streetscapes that we're doing right now are a big part of that. We are narrowing our roads, reducing the number of lanes. We're adding in, where we can, separated bicycle and pedestrian facilities and features. One project that we are currently wrapping up design on is the Reimagine Main Street project that connects south of downtown and is eventually going to connect into the heart of downtown. And it will have a separated cycle track, a roundabout, huge bump outs to reduce crossing distances in what is practically a 10-lane width road. So it's changing that cross-section like you mentioned, but how do we tackle it with some of these larger projects?
I would just say that the city of Hartford has a very aggressive bike lane plan, primarily due to Grace's leadership, and they've not only put the plan in place, but they're moving it forward in a fairly fast pace. So credit to Grace and the planning department for moving that forward.
Can everyone join me, please, in a big round of applause for Jordan Polon, Grace Yee, and Mike Zaleski? Awesome.